The Poco X3 NFC may not officially come to the US, but boy is this an impressive smartphone that feels like it could be an instant hit, and dare we say it, might be one of the best budget smartphones out there right now. Thanks for watching 95 Google here on YouTube. Remember to thumbs up, hit subscribe, and then tap the bell icon to be among the first to watch our upcoming videos. Affordable smartphones really shouldn't feel this good, or at least that is what previous conventions have told us to believe. The Poco X3 is a thick, well put together slab that feels incredibly solid compared to its price rivals. I was shocked that the back panel was made of polycarbonate at first, such is the premium impression I felt when picking up this device for the first time. Spec for spec, the Poco X3 NFC does keep pace with the Pixel 4a, but manages to edge it thanks to a slightly upgraded Qualcomm Snapdragon 732G chipset, bigger battery, and higher refresh rate display. The polycarbonate back also has a large embossed Poco logo underneath, which you'll either love or hate. I'm still on the fence, but it's definitely a striking look that will help your phone stand out with the Go Faster tonal stripes either side. The camera nodule at the back is also a little weirder than you're probably used to. It's as if the Poco design team wanted a circular camera housing and then decided to chop off a semicircle from the top and bottom. It's striking for sure, but it doesn't really add a great deal to the package here. Topping it all off is an IP53 splash resistance rating. It's not quite water resistance that we'd like to see, but it makes all the difference in the budget space, as many competing options simply do without this added protection. Finally, on the hardware front, there's even an IR blaster and headphone jack for wired audio. The Poco X3 comes with a flat 120Hz display, and while it's LCD, I have been seriously impressed thus far. Oh, and this is also in the Full HD Plus flavour. It feels like no corners have really been cut, save the LCD over AMOLED, with the punch hole not eating into what is truly a massive 6.6 inch display. It's pretty sharp with a 1080 by 2400 pixel resolution with a solid 395 ppi on offer here. Now it isn't all roses with the Poco X3 display though, as the pixel response time can be a little slow. This results in some ghosting when scrolling, but it isn't always visible or verifiable at first glance. The variable refresh rate can also be a little jarring when it switches from 60 to 120Hz, but interactions are great thanks to that 240Hz touch sampling rate. My biggest gripe though is the 460 nit peak brightness, although this does get as high as 630 nits in direct lighting conditions using the auto brightness settings. I can live with these admittedly modest display quirks or trade-offs for a 120Hz panel at this low cost though. One really impressive component of the Poco X3 package though, and I didn't anticipate going in, was the device haptics. They don't quite match up with the Pixel 4a, but boy are they good for the price. Usually it's something to instantly deactivate on a cheap smartphone, but the feedback is really full-bodied and satisfying when typing and tapping. In terms of software, the Poco X3 comes with the latest version of Xiaomi's MIUI 12, which might feel like a real shock to the system for people used to clean smartphone interfaces. The visual elements are all very much an acquired taste, but I suppose variety is the spice of life after all. It's not as bad as I anticipated though going in. The fact that the Google Discover feed and numerous default apps are Google options is a huge plus point. You will notice a few bloated duplicate system apps here and there though. One major gripe that needs to be addressed is the potential ads within MIUI 12 unless you try to deactivate them within the device's settings app. I did try disabling them using some of the most common methods, but was unable to find the culprit for these. Instead, I could only deactivate ad preferences, which didn't seem to remove the ads when using specific system applications. So what that means is when installing an application or viewing certain system menu sections, you may be served an ad for other Xiaomi applications or even added services and products. They are not massively intrusive, but they are there. It's this that possibly helps keep the pricing down, as non-tech savvy owners might simply leave them enabled without using root tactics to remove them. The biggest question is, are you more concerned with low pricing or being served ads? I think I can just about deal with this though, given the sections are areas I don't spend a lot of time within, so I simply don't see them often. Granted, I did leave them enabled to see if there was an overall performance hit. Luckily there isn't though. As for the performance of the device itself, the 120Hz panel helps mask some minor slowdowns when you get bogged down applications, but the 6GB of RAM and Snapdragon 732G chipset can do just about anything you want to do on a day-to-day basis. High-end gaming and lots of multitasking are two areas where the chipset starts to creak. With graphical settings in games, needing to be lowered, but overall the entire interface and software experience is relatively snappy and smooth. Again, the high refresh rate helps massively in masking these minor slowdowns day to day. The inclusion of a 64 megapixel sensor means you get crisp, detailed shots using that main sensor, but Xiaomi has dialed up the noise reduction quite heavily. As you'll find or notice with most Xiaomi devices, the Poco X3 really likes to dial up the saturation too in most scenarios. That isn't always the case, as sometimes images can be muted or flat. I'm not sure if this is because of the AI tuning, but my advice would be to disable this out of the box. Having multiple lenses is also good, but the only useful inclusion is that of the ultra-wide angle lens. Images do instantly get softer when that lens is used, and exposure can be a bit of a lottery, but overall it's a valuable addition to your photographic arsenal. The macro and depth sensors do feel tacked on and barely add anything to complete the Poco X3 NFC camera package in my opinion. When taking selfies too, you'll notice plenty of skin smoothing in the 20 megapixel shots. The results are pretty clean and crisp, but it's a similarly mixed bag depending on the lighting conditions or subject. A huge 5160 mAh battery is also included in the Poco X3, which is nice because it gives you plenty of headroom even if you are a heavy user of your smartphone. Add in 33 watt fast charging and you can go from 0 to 100% in around an hour. That's more impressive given the price tag and the sheer size of that internal cell. That said, using the Poco X3 NFC with my secondary SIM, I could easily see 3 days without needing to seek out the charger. Heck, when pushing it to its limits and glued to the display watching YouTube, controlling my Chromecast, texting and calling, it felt hard to kill in a 24-hour period. Games are of course the biggest taxing factor on the battery, but the Poco X3 NFC can handle extended gaming sessions without too much issue. We have to say this device is among the longest lasting smartphones we've tested thus far in 2020. So in essence, I think if we laud the Pixel 4a for such an impressive experience at $349, then the Poco X3 NFC deserves just as many plaudits for giving you just a little bit more for nearly $100 less. I'm astounded at how good this phone is given its pricing. While MIUI 12 isn't exactly as nice to use daily as Android One or the 4a's iteration of Android 11, I've not once felt like I'm missing out on anything major here. Battery life is exceptional, the large size is great for consuming media, having a 120Hz panel at under $300 can also not be overstated either. While there are some minor stutters and the odd advert here and there, they are so infrequent that you'll likely never notice majorly. But that said, ads are my only major concern, but I've only seen them a few times here and there and it doesn't even register. Realistically, the Poco X3 is arguably, and we've got a bold claim incoming, the best budget device I've actually ever used. I cannot literally think of a smartphone that costs so little but manages to offer so much. The imperfections are easy to forgive, as the pricing is just so right for a mid-ranger. If you are able to get hold of one for yourself, then you simply won't be disappointed. So with all of that said, if you've got any questions about the Poco X3 NFC, then slap them down in the comments section below. But as always, this is Damien with 95 Google, so thanks for watching, and I will speak to you later.